going to be moving on to chapter 2 tomorrow. So there we go. So we're be covering the last section, chapter 1, called Distortion of Miracle Impulse, of miracle impulses. They're impulses. Did you know miracles first arrive in your consciousness as an impulse to do a miracle, and that those impulses can be distorted? And so we're going to, before we launch into the new material, going to back up for a minute and recall some of the things that have been said related to this already. So this is from section 5 of chapter 1. And David, I'm just going to ask if you would read it.
From Wholeness and Spirit. You are involved with unconscious distortions above the miracle level, which are producing a dense cover over miracle impulses, which makes it hard for them to reach consciousness. All shallow roots must be uprooted because they are not deep enough to sustain you. The illusion that shallow roots can be deepened and thus made to hold is one of the distortions on which the reverse of the golden rule rests. As these false underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable. However, nothing is less stable than an upside down orientation, nor can anything that holds it upside down be conducive to increased stability.
So we're talking about a number of things: false underpinnings, shallow roots, an illusion that shallow roots can be deepened, and that this is an unstable situation. What are they talking about here? What is the framework? We're talking about the human condition of consciousness of the mind and where consciousness rests, how it's formulated, how it's formed. And so, and I'm going to show you a diagram in just a moment, but just note this is very concise language here. We all have, you are involved with unconscious distortions. They're not conscious, they're in your pre-conscious and your subconscious. Unconscious distortions that are positioned above the miracle level. So we're going to use a higher to lower metaphor. So the miracle level is deeper, and the unconscious distortions are on top of that, and then consciousness is on top of that. And these distortions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it difficult for miracle impulses to reach into your conscious mind. So to go into a diagram that may make all that more helpful here, and this diagram is all-encompassing. There are simplified versions of it that I could have used here, but this is the complete version. So let's start at the conscious level. This is the level you're operating from right now. Underneath your conscious level, in the red tone color, there are unconscious parts of your mind which are stored, all your fears and guilt and shame and concerns and conflicts. And these produce a distortion, unconscious distortions, whenever miracle impulses arise. Well, where do miracle impulses come from? They come from still deeper in your mind. They're still unconscious, but they're impulses to do good, to be helpful, to perform a miracle. And it's these impulses from miracles percolate up, and they are constant. You have impulses to do good all day long, but as they percolate up towards consciousness, they encounter these distortions, call them ego distortions. And so you might have an impulse to be helpful to somebody, and then the distortions of, well, maybe I don't know this person, I don't have the time to do this, I might get hurt, what's in it for me? All these distortions get in so that when it finally reaches consciousness, all the distortions result in not acting on the miracle impulse. Instead, thinking, I've got other things that I need to do. I can't be bothered with this. So go back to what we read. You are involved in unconscious distortions, which are above the miracle level. And these unconscious distortions produce a dense cover over the miracle impulses, and it makes it hard for miracle impulses to reach consciousness. That's what it said. And now you have a visual map of, so we're using a metaphor of top to bottom, which is not a perfect metaphor, but you get the idea. So also, let's summarize A Course in Miracles. This section here in red, while it is a part of the ego domain, is not necessary for consciousness. And a person who has completely forgiven, completed learning, all this red level is emptied out of the distortions. There's no cover anymore. And then miracle impulses move freely into consciousness. Course in Miracles, the reason why, now some people would call this shadow work, the forgiving or the undoing of all the lies and the illusions and the judgments and the guilt is in your unconscious mind. The goal of Course in Miracles is to empty that. You don't need any of that, to empty all that out. And when that happens, miracles, impulses, which were always there, will freely move into your conscious mind. That's when miracles happen, when there's no barriers to the impulses. So that was a mouthful. Let's pause here and take some comments or questions. Noelle?
How do we empty out?
So this whole program is on that emptying out, so that we don't want to summarize that in 10 words. Part 1 of the workbook, lesson 1 to 220, is entirely focused on emptying out. The process of forgiveness, Noelle, is a process of letting go of all the fears that you and I have made. And that is a part of the emptying out. So it's a mind training to stop producing fear and judgment and guilt and new material. Stop producing new material and free yourself of the prison house, ancient prison of old material, things that we've accumulated already in life. Cheryl?
Thank you. Does this have anything to do with inhibitions?
All right. So what do you mean by inhibitions?
Well, we have inhibitions, when we're uninhibited and when we're inhibited, we just,
Yeah.
I know for me, a lot of times in my past, because of fear and ego, and inhibitions, which created inhibitions,
Right.
I was uncomfortable coming from love, coming from
Yes.
vulnerability, which we call, so that was because of inhibitions. That was because of taught fear,
Right.
that
Yes.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And in that sense, Cheryl, exactly the way you said it, all that content has been stored in your unconscious mind. It's learning. It's not useful, but it's learning nevertheless. And all of us have some degree of that learning that does not serve us. All that is stored down there as distortions, as this is where we recall, Susie, you might like it. This is the darkened prison. This is a private world. It's unique content to you, where all your self-deceptions, where your shallow roots abide, all your illusions about yourself and others, past learnings, and it seems to your mind very real, but in fact has no truth to it. Okay, so now we're going to read about distortions of miracle impulses. Okay, we're moving on to the section 7.
Your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach your awareness. The confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. This is because not doing it is a denial of self. Denial of self results in illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external.
Okay, so the emphasis here is these miracle impulses that get distorted by past learning become transformed. By the time they reach your conscious mind, they've become just transformed into a physical impulse. So what might have started out as an intent to do good might, for example, say, I think I need some sugar now. Let's go get some candy. So it's translated into a physical impulse, but there are a wide variety of physical impulses that it can be translated into. This is often, in psychological terms, a desire to have a mood-altering experience, something that takes me out of the frame of mind that I was in and tries to put me into a better frame of mind. So that's, by the time these miracle impulses reach consciousness, they've become distorted into some form of physical impulse. And so it's a misdirected miracle impulse. Joy?
Just the sentence about the confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses, it made me think of, I have this creativity in me, and I don't really even feel like I do it. I feel like it is done through me, where I design clothing and I make upcycled clothing, and it's really creativity. And it's just when I'm hearing this confusion of miracle impulses, and it says all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. Well, when I'm designing and creating, I feel like it's the spirit within me that's creating through me. And I wonder, is that a miracle impulse because it's really pleasurable? Or is that just a physical impulse?
Yeah, so I don't want to make a judgment on what it is, but creativity does feel good. And it is part of this process of bringing forth your artistic expression, which is really your God self trying to bring forth heaven on earth in that form. So creativity, yes. And when we call it a miracle impulse, yes. Anytime you're bringing forth life-giving activity, things that bring forth and enhance life, that's a miracle impulse.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, so all this we will read about more. David?
Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. The love of God, for a little while, must still be expressed through one body to another, because vision is still so dim. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so you can achieve real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. Learning to do this is the body's only true usefulness.
So we're in chapter 1. We're trying to set a foundation here, a framework for this entire course. And we read earlier in this chapter about the levels of physical level, mental level, soul level, and the confusion that occurs in our minds regarding what level are we operating in and what are the laws that prevail in that level. So that's baked in to this. The level that is real and eternal is that you were created for the good, the beautiful, and the true. The forgetting of that is what the separation is all about, is forgetting what you were created for and adopting some other agenda that was taught, that we learned here. So while we're in this situation where we're in a world where other agendas have emerged and people believe those other agendas are their identity, during that time, the love of God must be expressed from one body to another. It's a form of communication, letting people know you care, letting people know they matter, letting people expressing kindness or creativity. So for a little while, until spiritual vision becomes more prominent within yourself and others, the body becomes a mechanism for expressing the love of God. And so this is a good thing. You want to hear this word about the body. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so that your vision changes. And I didn't point it out on our chart a moment, but vision comes from the deepest level of the Christ mind. So it's the vision of the perfect vision, which is the vision of the love of God and everyone being a child of God, percolates up. You can use your body best to learn to enlarge your perception so that you might achieve that real vision. It's a vision that is not, blind people can have it too, meaning physically blind people. It does not depend on eyesight. It depends on soulful sight. And the learning of that is the real usefulness of the body here. Is it's a learning aid to help you transition first from level 1, physical sight, to level 2, perception of truth, and then ultimately to the real vision. Noel?
That last line, learning to do this. This refers to achieving real vision,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So is the body's only true usefulness. So does that mean that our consciousness comes through the body now? So is through our consciousness, we learn to achieve real vision?
Well, yeah, so we learn to achieve real vision by a change in our perceptions, which you're calling consciousness. First, we enlarge our perceptions and orient them towards the Holy Spirit. And as we continue on that process, we attain real vision. But it definitely requires a change in, quote, consciousness, a change in perception. And the body is merely a device. It's not the means for enlarging your perception, but it's something that will teach you. You can learn from it that your initial, you can learn from it of your need to enlarge your perception. So it has a usefulness which is temporary, only so that you might get to this next state. It's just, maybe the metaphor doesn't work completely, but first grade had a usefulness for you. First grade was needed, but it's no longer needed. So it had a usefulness for a time, but it was temporary. And now that we've moved past first grade, we're done with it. We don't need to go back and identify as first graders, but we're sure better off for having gone through the experience. Okay. Let's go on.
Fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. Fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false need. Twist reality in any way, and you are perceiving destructively. Fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. But although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. You believe in what you make.
So the topic here is fantasies, and we should take a moment to realize what a fantasy is and how much time we spend fantasizing about the future, fantasizing about things that have not happened, a fearful fantasy. The focus here is on attempting to derive pleasure. You can have a fantasy, it's an attempt to control reality. So this was one of my obsessions in life, is to try to figure out things before they happened, so that when I got there, I would be in better control. And I actually made a career out of that, an attempt to control reality according to a false need, a sense that if I was not in control, then I would be afraid. I might, who knows what would happen if I lose control. So so it's a practice that one can become so absorbed in thinking about tomorrow and next year. And if I do this today, what's going to happen next month? It's a form of fantasizing. And yes, it can be associated with what would make you happy. I can have a fantasy that if I only had a lot more money, I could do all these things and be happy. Or it can be associated with dread. and anxiety, and I have a fantasy if I don't have any money, then how difficult life is going to be for me, or if I lose the money I have. So it's a faulty perceptual error to believe, and it always has this characteristic, is that you make them real to yourself. By entertaining these ideas, you make them seem real to you, but only to yourself. So we have all been engaged. And by the way, this can be done in the past as well. You can look backwards and wish you had done things differently. Talk about a waste of time. If I look backwards and with regret for actions taken and wishing that you could make it real that things had worked out differently. So what's the bottom line here? Is we need to learn to train our mind to keep our consciousness in the proper lane and not veer off into the ditch. And the ditch can, in this context, is in the form of a fantasy where your mind is just filling in the blanks, the unknowns. I'm talking about the future here, filling in the unknowns of the future or attempting to rewrite the past. All that is your conscious mind, the power of your mind being used to miscreate reality. And all that inevitably blocks you from the higher consciousness that will free you. Susie?
So I was a big liver in the future, you know, or in the past or whatever. And I think the question was asked before, you know, how do we do all this? How do we get away from all of this? And for me, it's all in the workbook lessons, because I think in your graph, you know, you mentioned the authority problem, right? And that's us trying to fix ourselves and believing that we're in charge. But really, the Holy Spirit is the only one that can help me out of all of this thinking. And I just wanted to say that the two lessons that really come to my mind about this are, which I didn't understand prior to going through them over and over again, was I cannot perceive my own best interests, but everything happens in my best interest, and I don't know what anything is for. So when I find myself thinking, well, this is the outcome I want, or this is what I think it should happen, or this is what I know what will happen, I come right back and say, no, God, no. That is my ego over here trying to make up a fantasy and taking me out of the now, which is the only place that miracles can happen. And so those two lessons have been really important, you know, especially when something is going on and I step back and say, no, I cannot perceive my own best interest. So whatever I'm fantasizing about in my mind that I think is really good for me, just probably might not be. Let me wait and see how everything unfolds and ask the Holy Spirit for help. And that to me is the only way I've been able to heal my mind a little bit and change my thinking. I can't do it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Noelle?
That was great, Susie. Is this a remedy for the past or future fantasies to stay in the now?
Yes, staying in the now is what we are learning to do. It's not to say that we've mastered it, but the master stays in the now and is not preoccupied with rewriting the past or fabricating a future. They're living fully in the moment. So yes, you could view it as a remedy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about creativity a moment, because we were brought into being by a creative act of the creator. Well, fantasy is a form of creativity used improperly. The term in the course is a miscreation. It's using the power of your mind to make something appear in your consciousness, but it has no higher purpose. It's just mind wandering, and it leads to distortions. So there's a dichotomy here between miscreating, creating inappropriately, and creating, which would be to bring forth goodness, truth, beauty, and love and kindness. And our mind has the ability to do either one. And it takes mind training to learn to stop miscreating and start using your mind for positive creation. And so back to Noel's question, by staying in the now, you remember who you are, what you're here for, what your purpose is. And if you start to veer off from that, you remind yourself to get back on the track so that your thoughts become consistently oriented towards Holy Spirit guidance, which is what we'll read about next.
You believe in what you make. If you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. Fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. Reality is lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded.
And here, when we come into miracles, we usually think about this in terms of ourselves alone. What can I get out of this? Well, and that's where we start. But as we go through this, we realize that we are not alone. We're in relationship with others, and that they are our mirrors, and that we need them. And in fact, the only way to get through the gates of heaven is in holding the hands of your brother. This ultimately is expanded to include everyone. Complete restoration of the sonship is the goal of the miracle-minded, is the goal of atonement, is to restore all souls to an understanding of who they truly are. Well, how do we get there? This kind of goes to one of Noel's questions. How do we get there? Well, it's a learning journey. And if you offer miracles, you will become more confident in your ability to function in that capacity as a miracle worker. You become strong in your belief in them. And here's the real beauty. The strength of your conviction is contagious, so that you're not alone in experiencing the effects of your thinking, and that it will sustain not only you, but the one who is receiving the miracle as well. When you say, I believe in you, it sustains them as well. When that transition comes, so we're moving out of fantasy and into using our creativity for miracles, then that becomes very pleasurable and satisfying, because your mind starts to integrate around a common purpose. All parts of your lasting and true self start to unite around a common goal, which is the expression of miracles, the expression of love that you truly are. And so this is the path to happiness, is moving out of fantasy land and into miracle land. Noel?
One lesson is a great compliment here. It's number 345. I offer only miracles today, for I would have them be returned to me.
That is very fitting for this, because there is a giving and receiving. There's an offering and a return. And it sustains both. The one that gives is strengthened, and the one that receives is strengthened as well. So it really is, Noel. Thank you. 345, that was? Yeah, beautiful.
345.
Uh-huh.
Where is that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Workbook lesson 345. I
Thank you.
give miracles.
Thank you.
Okay, so from distorted miracle impulses, which result in all kinds of distortions, we'll call them fantasies, that you seem to, that only your mind perceives and believes in, freeing ourselves of that and getting back on purpose, which allows miracles to strengthen us, and we become more miracle-minded. This becomes stronger and more at ease and accepting of our role in miracles. But what does it take, David?
This is a course in mind training. All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. A solid foundation is necessary because of the confusion between fear and awe to which I have already referred and which is often made. And if I can editorialize, this speaks exactly to what Noel just brought up, that, and I was, lesson 345, which is right towards the very end, is directly related to what we're reading today.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's amazing how even the end of the workbook lesson wraps around the chapter 1 of the textbook. Isn't that marvelous? So this paragraph really speaks to me about what we're about here. It's about mind training, and it requires that you do your part, which, what is your part? Well, it is going to require some attention and study at some level, more than just coming to a meeting like this. And it's predicated on a foundation, the early chapters. So my interpretation, the solid foundation they're talking about is the first 6 chapters of the textbook. It's my interpretation. I believe that strongly. It rests too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. I found that the first 6 chapters are generally glossed over. People don't understand them. They go on to the later chapters without a solid foundation in the early chapters. And that has consequences to their learning. So as you study these earlier sections, it doesn't mean that it's a complete picture in the first 6 chapters. They will be amplified later on, but you have to be secure in the earlier chapters in order to properly understand what's being amplified and the implications later on. So you need a solid foundation. As an instructor, I took this as my guidance. I need to learn these initial chapters. What happens if we don't? What happens if you skim over there? Well, there's a risk. It's not certain, but it's possible that the fear to which exists in your subconscious mind, that which seems real to you, your fears, will be carried over into the later chapters, and your fears will get triggered, will come up in relationship to content that comes up in the later chapters. And that would be unfortunate, because that would evoke us to fear God rather than to honor and recognize him as a source of love. We would now project our own fears onto our belief in what the Creator is. And as a result, confusion between fear and awe is often made. So we need a solid foundation. Does not mean that we would have freed ourselves completely of fear, but at least we know where it comes from. We stop pointing to outside sources as the cause of our fear, and we recognize that these distortions that result in misunderstandings are as a result of contents within our own subconscious mind. It's our shadow work that needs to be, that is responsible, not our shadow work, but our shadow that is responsible for these fears. So that's why these first 5-6 chapters are so essential. David?
I have said that awe is inappropriate in connection with the sons of God, because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. However, it was also emphasized that awe is proper in the presence of your Creator. I have been careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I am also trying to do the same with yours. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God Himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed.
So this is a continuation of what was just talked about, in that there is a possibility of projecting your own fears onto the Creator. And fear becomes confused with awe with fear. So then he goes into a little bit more detail that and says that all is to be reserved only for the Creator. All should not be directed towards Christ. He cites himself as being one of our equals here. He is a son of God, not the creator of all things. And so it'd be inappropriate to hold Christ in awe. Love, yes. Trust, yes, but not all. And again, to echo once again, the later steps in this course do involve a more direct approach to God himself. And the risk is that we import our fears into that experience. So we must deal with our fears first. And all of chapter 2 is about that topic, dealing with our fears. We'll start chapter 2 tomorrow. And so listen to these words. The course teaches it would be unwise to start on the later steps of approaching God directly without careful preparation. It would be unwise to jump ahead and skip over the preparatory stages. Now, yes, so one of the ways in which we experience God directly is through revelation. So occasionally, revelation it's an experience that occasionally you will have where you'll see the whole picture at once. It's a complete picture. But to reach the end result, the means are needed. And the means are talked about throughout the Course of Miracles. It comes back to Noel's question about how is it that we do these things? What is the process? And we're just going to, for now, just say the mind training in the Course of Miracles is the means. We'll develop that theme more later on. But once you decide that you, above all else, you want to see, you want the vision, you want to be, remember who you are, that's the goal, then the means will be given to you. The Course of Miracles will teach you the method, the path to get to that end result. Revelation will reveal that end to you so that you'll be able to consciously experience what the end state is like, but the work is in the path, the means, the process. And miracles are the central tool that we're given for achieving that. So we said that there are a number of principles in section 1 of chapter 1 that may apply to this reading. This can be done for every chapter, every section if you wanted to, but we're particularly stressing it here at the beginning. So here's one, number 28. Miracles are a way of earning release from fear, being released from the fears of your own subconscious mind. In contrast, revelation induces a state in which fear has already been abolished. It's beyond fear. Miracles help you in the process of being released from fear. Thus, miracles are a means, and revelation is an end in itself. Number 31, miracles inspire gratitude, not all. Thank God for what you really are. You are holy, and the miracle honors their holiness, which can be hidden, but never lost. And then I grabbed this from somewhere else. It's not one of the principles, but it does help you to understand the role of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will mediate messages from God to a lower order of understanding. It's a higher to lower communication. It's a mediation or interpretation. The direct channel from God to man is left open for revelation. So there's multiple channels, multiple communication channels for sure. So the direct channel from God to man is left open for revelation, but the Holy Spirit does the translating of the higher to the lower. And the miracle is reciprocal because it involves, as we said earlier, there's a giving and receiving there. So the miracle is reciprocal. Both parties benefit. Whereas in a revelation, God does not benefit from a revelation. You benefit, but it's not reciprocal. Well, he's like so much better off because you received a revelation. It's a one-way communication. So there are 7 different channels of communication. Revelation is one of them. Miracles are another. And they have different attributes. They're all used for the same purpose, to help you find your way back home. But there are multiple channels used for that. And then number 46, the Holy Spirit's the highest communication medium. Miracles do not involve this type of communication. It is not that type because why? Because miracles are events in time. They're temporary communication devices. They're only used to help us move forward from our current condition. So they're temporary. Someday, when, let's say, when you return to your original form of communication with God by direct revelation, then the need for miracles is over. You no longer need an interpreter, but you will have been restored to the original state, which is one of perfect and direct communication from the mind of God to your own understanding. I also had a summary. Please ask questions or make comments here if you wish. But I had a summary to do as well. Simon?
Yeah, what would be the 7 levels of communication, Jonathan?
Yeah, I have to bring that up. We showed it earlier. Where did I show it? So that's the right question because I teased that up.
You do.
And I will pull it up in a minute. If let's see, we're ahead on time, so I'm going to take a moment and pull that up. It might take me 60 seconds to pull it up, and I'll show you those other forms of communication. All right. So, but I want to finish with this one last slide, which is a summary, and then we'll spend a few moments on that, Simon. Thank you for asking. So, trying to summarize my attempt to summarize what some of the meaningful points from today. What can we say about the body? Well, we can say it does have usefulness. And it's to help you enlarge, it's as a learning aid so that you shift from your initial perceptions into a larger perceptual view, which allows you to achieve real vision. a vision that is informed by the soul rather than by the physical eyes. So the body is used as a stepping stone. We use the metaphor of first grade. We don't want to remain there, but it does serve a purpose in the proper place in our learning progression. By offering miracles, you become stronger in your belief in them. And this develops conviction and certainty, confidence, which will sustain you as well as the person that is receiving the miracle. I believe in you. I know that you can do this. It sustains the receiver. After all, what we're talking about is a shifting consciousness of both the giver and the receiver. So miracles, we're talking about the main focus of this course is they are signs of love among two or more equal members of the sonship. Equality does not deserve all, because all implies inequality. All is reserved for the creator of all things, for the infinite source of all reality. The goal of the miracle-minded individual or the miracle worker is, this is the final goal. There are many intermediate goals, but the final goal is complete restoration of the sonship. And it would be unwise to start on a direct approach to God himself without careful preparation, or all will be confused with fear. You can relate in peace to God and your brothers by extending peace from within. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. So focus on that. Maybe we didn't pause there. But how do you relate to yourself, to others, to God? Relate in peace to God and your brothers by extending the peace that is within you. That's the model for this course, is that perfect peace already abides within you. Yes, it's covered over by these distortions, but once we are freed of those distortions, peace emerges naturally into our conscious mind, and then we use it as a basis of relating to God and to others. So, questions or comments about that? Let's see. I told Simon I would find this for him because, and I don't know where we covered it before, but I can find it if you just allow me to fiddle. Oh, here it is. I bet you it's here. In almost certain. There we go. Yep. So it was not, what I'm about to show you, Simon, is my own summation. Oh, what happened? Oh, there we go. Sorry, technology, we'll get it. What I'm about to show you, Simon, is my own summation taken from many different parts of the course and put together on all one slide. See, there's not a page I can point you to. All right, this is spread throughout here. And it is, so we're talking, what are we talking about? Communications that are soulful, where you're highest self, your best self is engaged. And Simon, I've put them in 7 categories, but I could have come up with 9 or reduced it to 6. It's not a perfect assortment, but you'll get the idea as we go through it. So starting out on things that are more familiar and close at home. How do we communicate our soul? By being helpful, grateful, glad, appreciative, by offering blessings and honor to other individuals. Notice how all that is very soulful. And related to that, but maybe going a little further, it's still close to home. How do we communicate our soul? By meditation, by prayer, thanksgiving, celebration, adoration, praise, all in worship, and through what the Course calls the natural communication of creation with the Creator. And all those forms, notice we're not endorsing any one form. We're honoring all forms of communication. Okay. Now, moving up the ladder of consciousness to things that you find frequently in the Course, the Holy Spirit's voice is a form of communication. It has attributes that distinguish it from other forms of communication in that it is indirect, it's mediated, it's the voice of God translated into a level of your own understanding. So it's interpreted, it's mediated, it's higher to lower, it's intended for a confused mind so that you learn your way back. It's like a lighthouse that brings you safely home and helps to heal the split mind. But there are other forms of communication. We read that the Holy Spirit's communication higher to lower, miracles are not of that form. Miracles are different. Miracles, along with Christ's vision, I've chose to group them together. They are for the purposes of healing our guilty, judgmental, fearful mind. We very much need this form of communication. And it tells us right in the Courses, this is what's really needed here and now, is miracles. That's why it's a Course in Miracles. And the effect they have is they unite us with others by recognizing the holiness in other people. And at the highest level, a miracle is a direct form of communication from the Christ mind within you to the mind of another individual. So Christ's mind is involved in miracle communication. And there's more. So Simon, we're really starting to get higher up there in the holy pyramid of communication. So now we're talking about holy instances, which are an experience where two souls are awakened and connected. I see you, my brother. You are a part of me and I am a part of you. Two souls that realize their own perfection in that moment and acknowledge each other. Revelation, which we talked a lot about today and in section 1.2, is a personal experience. It's very hard, Simon, for revelation to be communicated. I can't tell you what my experience of revelation was like because it's beyond words and beyond time. But I know that I had it as an experience. It's a direct channel from God communicating to your mind. And it's a reflection in time of the original form of communication, which was perfect direct communication from God to all creation. And so that then brings us to our highest level of communication, the original form, which was an expression of pure joy and love between the creator and creation. There was no English being used in the original form of communication because it was before time began. And it's actually an eternal process. It still goes on, but we have to work to do before we return to the original form. Remember, revelation is a reflection of the original form. It's not the actual original form, but it does reflect it in time. And in that process, it's not just one-way communication, Simon. It's an experience of pure love which you receive and radiate back at the same time. So it's ultimate nirvana, bliss, moksha, enlightenment, and in the miracle sense, where you feel connected to everything and everyone perfectly as part of yourself. So that's a lot of levels of communication. The groupings, not perfect, but I did not make these things up. All these are referred to in Course in Miracles in one form or another. Okay. So
Excellent, Jonica. Thank you.
thank you for asking. It's one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
Believe me, it took a while to put that together.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, Heather?
It's very.
Oh, you done? Okay. Yeah, no, it's inspiring, isn't it? All these could all be viewed as gifts to us of ways in which we communicate our soul to God and to one another. So it's really a beautiful thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Heather.
I'm just asking if you can post it, please, so we can keep it.
Yeah. I'm now, thank you for that question. So I'm now posting when you ask on this website, it's on my website, but it's under the resources tab. So if you go to the website, look for A Course in Miracles, you'll find that first page, and there's a link on there that says summary of slides used in class. Summary slides used in class. I will post it there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Cheryl?
Yeah, I have to leave. But wishing you all a great weekend and thank you.
All right.
John.
Thank you,
Okay.
Cheryl. Thanks for being here. Okay, so that's all we're gonna do for the reading today. Noelle?
I'd like to go back to creativity based on what Joy said. For me too, there's nothing almost that feels as good as creating in my chosen medium. And I feel, and I think I heard in Joy too, the impetus seems to come from above, beyond, inside, however we want to express it. And many other people have said similar things, that, example, it wasn't me, I felt led. Look at the transcriber of the Course in Miracles. She, despite her kicking and screaming, she was led and she was open. So the communications that you outlined, I think a lot of them have to do with maybe opening up, discarding perceptions somehow, discarding the fantasies. Oh, this is going to get me somewhere, something like that. People are going to recognize it. This is, I'm fulfilled. The other thing is I'm fulfilling my purpose, but to me, that's a higher level, because the joy is so great and it lingers for me. I don't know about joy, whether it lingers for you afterwards, but often it's, quote, what has made it for the day for me. So I'd like to hear other people's responses and possibly experiences with creativity in whatever way they express it.
Okay, there's a request or others. Susie?
I have a question first, Jonica. Wouldn't this sort of go with when we start talking about abilities? How, because that's what comes up for me, how like Joy's, one of Joy's abilities might be the creativity she was talking about and whatever Noelle's talking about. And for me, I get that same feeling from like some of my abilities, right? I know we're not there in the text yet, but would that be kind of, yeah.
Very much that's how it's expressed, yes.
So like, for instance, David, I don't know if he dropped off, like he's an eye surgeon and that's he has those abilities. And we've talked a lot how we all get, I don't know what the word, different abilities in this world.
We develop them.
We develop them in this world. So, the abilities that David has or that Joy has or that Noelle has, I might have different abilities, but I think that we're all, I don't know, I'll speak for myself, my abilities and the things that I can do really do bring me joy. Yes. And they do bring me a sense of, I don't know, accomplishment, or that's what I'm meant to be doing. These are the abilities I've developed. Yeah. And so I love that part in the course when it talks about all different kinds of abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also makes, just to elaborate a little bit on a finer point, Susie, it says something remarkable that no one, so there are many different abilities. So we have abilities in art and music and literature and athletics and technology and on and on and on and on and on. It says no one has none of an ability and no one has all of the ability, which, and then it goes on to kind of talk about that abilities come from deep within you. And you learn to develop and express them in time and in space. But where do they come from? They come from deep within you, where it's all shared. And so the profound thing about this, Susie, is when time is over, everyone will have all abilities. It will be completely developed, and everyone will share completely in all abilities. In the meantime, we need individuals to develop their abilities in order to get us to that final state. And so we call them, you're special in the sense you've developed certain abilities that are needed to help others now. So it's fascinating. The course has really got profound insights into this whole potential for developing learning and growth. Heather?
That's really amazing. If you think about from the cosmic view, that's so efficient. You know, that we would all bring a piece and then we would all share that piece and then we get to experience all of it, because no one of us could develop all those in any lifetimes, no matter what. And so the nature of God is such that we'd want to share it all. Well, how else could you do that? Except for we each bring our little instrument of peace and we each play in our little orchestra and our little part, and it enriches the entire part. So it just makes so much sense to me. You know, what you all just shared with the whole creativity and top to bottom, it's all a shared experience. That's just beautiful. Thank you.
And so this is a topic to which I am passionate about and have a lot to say at some other time. Kind of today's session we're done. We're kind of off in overtime here now. But given what we just said about abilities, it would be good for you to decide what abilities do you want to develop for yourself over this next year. And since we're in A Course in Miracles meeting here, I would suggest that you think of that in terms of your learning of Course in Miracles. And so, for example, once I read that a solid foundation is necessary, that you for understanding the implications of the later parts of the course, I decided to attempt to develop abilities to understand the first 6 chapters of A Course in Miracles. So, in other words, I invested a great deal to attempt to understand those chapters because of that paragraph. Solid foundation is necessary. You could carve out your own area, like you really want to understand the workbook lessons, or you really want to develop your ability to meditate and sit quietly and tranquilly, or you want to develop your ability in any of the other forms of soul communication that we just read. By the way, Simon, it's already posted on the website because I had done it before. So let the Holy Spirit be your guide in what area she would like you to develop abilities in this year. And view it as a year-long journey. You're not going to get there, all of it, in 1 week. This is a learning journey over the course of a year, and you will be amazed at how much you can acquire in the course of 1 year if you commit and focus on developing an ability in one area. It's an amazing. Most of us underestimate how much we can accomplish in the long term. And in a year from now, you'll be amazed at how fluent you feel with an ability that right now you may feel less confident in. So a couple hands went up. Joy?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I have it's a year-long study guide to the course. And for each day of the year, it tells you you're going to read a certain principle of miracles, a certain section of the text, or as you go on further, it's either going to be a certain section of the text, the manual for teachers, the clarification of terms, and I think it even has like pages out of the Song of Prayer, and then which lesson for that date. And so every day I kind of ask the Holy Spirit to put my ego off to the side. And as I read through the reading for the day, I notice, I feel like it's communicating, like I'm absorbing it without resistance. Yeah. It's really good. And I mean, I have this file. If I could share it with the group, I don't know how to do that. I can send it in an email or whatever, but it is a year-long study guide. And by the end of 1 year, the student will have read the entire text, done every workbook lesson, and read the manual for teachers, Song of Prayer, and the psychology pamphlet, Psychology Principles and Practices, whatever that thing's called, all of it in a term of 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would call that an ambitious agenda.
It's only 1 day at a time, though.
Right, of taking one day at a time, right, right. Okay, a couple other comments, Susie?
No, I just love when you said develop abilities, because I remember when I first started the lessons, I thought like, I can't do this 3 times a day, or I can't do this for, 2 minutes. And I've developed the abilities, but because you said it based on my desire and my willingness. And now I can do them like they're suggested, and no big deal that I couldn't, and no judgment there, but I desired to develop the ability, and that just took a few years, but it's okay. Holy Spirit waits patiently for me.
Right. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Noel?
Maybe Joy could put on the chat how to purchase that year-long study guide. I don't know if it's in Amazon or.
Well, let's see. No, I think it's free. So Joy, if you email it to me, I will post it on the website there. I think that might be easier than people all emailing you separately.
Will do.
Okay.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, so it's a free electronic file.
Yeah.
It's not in printed format. You can print it yourself, but
Is it through Miracle Distribution Center?
It's through a website called spiritualear.org.
yeah, a number.
But when you go there, then you have to request it and wait for a response and all. And I already did all that, so I can just send it to Jonica.
Yeah, I will post it on the same
you.
place as the Soulful Communications. All right, friends. Well, we had some overtime here. This has been fun. And now we're all going to pray to develop our abilities to communicate with our soul. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So thank you. This was I really feel inspired, like we're moving forward on the path here. That's really good. So we'll pick up, that's it for chapter 1, and we'll pick up with chapter 2 tomorrow and Monday. So thank you, David, for reading. Thank you all for your comments. Thanks for being a part of whatever it is we're doing here, this miraculous group experience. It's an honor. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good
Love
weekend,
you
everybody.
all.
See you Sunday, hopefully.
you tomorrow.
Amen. Bye-bye.
Bye.